Morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Deitch, and I am a customer success manager with Skybits. On behalf of myself and the entire Skybits team, we want to again welcome all of you to SmartTank Training Thursdays. Just so you're aware, if you've been on before, you've heard all of us talk about the recordings of these sessions. So if you'd like to either rewatch, send to other people in your organization who may need the training, we record all of these sessions and they're all on our Skybits YouTube page. If you go to YouTube, go to Skybits, just simply type in Skybits and subscribe to our channel. You'll be able to then view all of our content. So the content is not just the SmartTank Thursdays content, it's also including items from our amazing marketing team, our sales staff, all kinds of different content, which would probably be beneficial for most people on the call to just give some of those videos a watch. There's a lot of important content about the industries that we service in our SmartTank vertical market. Also go to skybits.com. We have tons of information there. So most of you probably just log into the user interface to look up your tanks. But as far as more content from Skybits, there are multiple ways to get that, and always able to learn about our newest and most exciting features, hardware, functionality, and anything else that you're interested in learning about. So we thank you, of course, for continuing to join us on this training journey that we've been on. We hope that these sessions have improved your understanding of the SmartTank user interface. And we want to bolster your confidence, right? We want to make it so that you're not just going in and doing one thing and then logging back out. We want to make sure that you're utilizing the service to its fullest ability. So hopefully over these past weeks, few months now that we've been doing these trainings, you've been able to now go in and start maybe utilizing tank view profiles or looking at your data for efficiency versus just, levels, setting up alarms, utilizing the alarms, and, instead of upping your calls per day, you're utilizing your alarms to figure out, where you are with capacity of your tanks. In a proactive manner, right? So you're able to see things that maybe you normally wouldn't with just looking at your call schedule. We did feel that probably most customers were not utilizing SmartTank to its fullest capability. So that was one of the reasons that kind of pushed us to put these sessions together. I'd like to thank my customer success team for assisting here. So I've been doing some training sessions, as well as Craig Graham and Fabian Villasenor. And our manager, Ira Stern, has been on all calls to help us, kind of facilitate any questions or lead our customers in a direction after. So I want to thank everybody. And Allison Ramos is also on the call with us. She is the manager of the customer support team. So wealth of knowledge on the call all the time, not just myself walking through this section. So a few housekeeping items prior to the start. Everybody's muted when they come in, since we're in a webinar situation here. We don't want background noise, or my dogs might bark or something, but that's unavoidable. But we don't want everyone's dogs barking at the same time and getting onto the recording. So we've muted everyone. If you've muted yourself and you want to ask a question out loud later, you can raise your hand. Once we get to the end of the session, start raising your hand. Even if you have questions during, raise your hand. You're going to have to unmute yourself if you've muted yourself, because again, we mute everyone when they come in. There will be plenty of time for question and answer. And as I mentioned, if I'm going over something that maybe you don't know about or you have a question about, please type it in the chat. Please type it in the question section. That's the best place, I believe. Then everybody can kind of see it. And if they have the same question, they'd be helped out by yours as well. And then, as I mentioned already, I'm a big proponent of the Skybits YouTube channel. I have not been paid to do this other than for my job. Just joking around, making sure everyone's paying attention. I don't get paid extra for promoting the Skybits YouTube channel. I do it quite frequently, and I will do it again at the end. I'm just very pleased to present that to our customers and say, hey, go to the channel, subscribe, and then look at some of the content. You know, we deal with a bunch of different clients. We have different vertical markets, and there might be something in there that's helpful for you and your business. So please, YouTube channel, hit subscribe. So last week we kind of began the journey, use that word again because it seems like it is, of structuring SmartTank to work for you. So we talked about organizations, we had talked about locations, and like I mentioned earlier as well, we've taken everybody through the entire SmartTank platform in hopes that you would then start using it, either start using it or using it more efficiently and effectively. So the very final step in setting up your organization is deciding who gets access. Who's going to have access to SmartTank? So I'm going to move on over here to the presentation, and oh, not sure what happened there. And there it is. Okay, sorry about that. Blue screen scared me. So I'm logged into the system. Again, I am in a demo account, a demo environment. When creating users, I just want to make sure everybody's aware. If you create a user, you cannot delete the user. So don't create, if you don't want to have false users in your account, don't create one. Just kind of walk through the steps. You can make one. You can make one that's not active any longer. And as you know, people cycle in and out of your business. If you have to, or customers cycle in and out of use of your system, you can then check on a box, which I'll show you how to do. But for the sake of this call, I'm going to step through all of this and then kind of show you how to create a user. And then, you know, we're going to talk about, first, we're going to talk about defining user access, right? So you can add different types of users to SmartTank. System administrators for organizations have access to allow additional permissions. So if you're the system administrator, or if you've been granted permission to do different things within the system, great. I'm going to kind of walk through what each of those little checkboxes mean. I'm sure you understand what I mean when I get into the users section, but let's actually just start to do that as we talk through this. We're going to add a new user. Very clear boxes to hit and buttons to push. There's a lot of data and information and things that look like they need to be filled out, but they don't always. So what I'm going to walk through first, though, because really what you want to consider when you're creating a user is what do they need to do? Where do they need to be able to view also? So it's not just the permission level of what can they do, it's also what do they need to see and do at the same time. So there are a few things to think about. And last week when I talked about organizations and locations, when you get to this part, if you are just a flat organization and you're giving access to your customers based on the location, or to your team members, the people that work at your company, you're able to give access by location. But if you have a larger group, let's say the people out west, or the people down south, or the people up in the Northeast where I am need access to, then you want to do sub-organizations. Like I said, I talked about that last week. It's on the YouTube channel. Here's where we get to that nitty-gritty, right? Why did I just do all that? Well, you're going to do a little bit more, but sometimes organizing it a little bit more than you have if you're just one giant org makes it easier to then allow access to certain individuals, generally within your company. So that's why we went over organizations and sub-orgs last week. So today we'll talk about the users who get access to those. You can always edit users, but you can't, like I said, you can't delete them. So this box right here is automatically checked when you come in to create a user. You can come in and edit them and uncheck this, then they won't be part of your active list, but they'll still exist. And there are reasons for that, database reasons. So, that's primarily what it is. That person does one thing. We don't want to get rid of that username. So that's really the reason. So when we look down here at permissions, we kind of want to think this through on the level of what do we want this person to be able to do, right? So has web access, it gives user the ability to log into the system. If you do not check this, then they can only receive email alerts. So we went over alerts, alarms and alerts as a result of the alarm. When we went over that section, we talked about getting an email alert. Now, if somebody is never going to log into SmartTank, and that's very frequent in, at least in the customers I deal with, my so-and-so, salesperson, maintenance person, somebody, usually delivery guy, whatever, needs to know only when this alert is sent out. This alarm is triggered and an alert subsequently is sent. This guy's never, or this lady, they're never going to log into the system. They just want to get those emails. You have to create the user and then put their email in the system. So they're not going to come in, they're just going to receive emails. Manage alarms. This allows the user to add or remove or change alarms and alarm parameters, right? So not only do you check a box that I want this alarm on, but you also have to set parameters. So we've learned that over the course of these few months. Manage tanks. Allows the user to change tank parameters, move or swap monitors from tanks, which some folks, that's what they do. They set everything up. Maybe make tweaks to the parameters, the initial setup, the gallons, the size, whatever needs to be changed. Move or swap tanks for monitors. You gotta swap monitors from tanks, sorry. You have to, do a move, or you have to swap out one that's being replaced. So you have the ability to do that. Manage call schedule allows the user to change monitor call schedule parameters, such as calls per day. So 1 call a day, 3 calls a day. If you don't know what yours are, you can look within the system to find that in the tanks, in the tank section. So you're able to drill down into each tank and see what the call schedule is, but you can make changes at that point. Manage tank view profiles, pretty much says what it is. This is a lot of what you see is what you get. Allows the user to add or change TVPs and assign them. So we've talked about TVPs because I think that's one of the least utilized features within the system. So we do, again, I believe there's actually 2 weeks where we talk about that type of information, those videos, again, on the YouTube channel. So manage users, usually reserved for system administrators only. It allows the addition and management of users within an organization. So allowing somebody to do what I'm doing right now, set up a user and manage the users that are in the system within the organization. And manage diagnostics, manage organizations allows the addition and management of sub-orgs within an organization. Some folks, one big organization, you don't have any flowing underneath. You can if you have that box checked on your user credentials. So I know where I am right here. I always have a path of where I am within SmartTank. Manage diagnostics, moving along here, allows users to view diagnostic data such as alarms for a tank. So you're able to check on diagnostic data if you have the managed diagnostics set up. Now, this is the big one. It's the mother of all boxes to check. It allows a user to access all organizations, locations, and tanks below the currently selected organization. So if I'm creating a user, I need to make sure that I'm in the correct organization. If you're a flat organization, you're one giant and all your tanks are under in locations, then you're always in the right one. But if you have sub-organizations and you're creating a user, say, I work in the Northeast, you want me to only see the Northeast sub-organization's tanks. So let's just drop down this box here. So we want to see, this would be the sub-orgs that I have. I would want to be in Skybits Energy because that's where I work. I don't want to see all of the tanks or have privileges to everything. I just want to have privileges to this one. So I'd want to make sure that I'm in the correct org or sub-org when I'm creating the user so that they have the correct path to follow, because we're going to move downward on this once we're creating a user. And then we'll get into that a little bit more, giving, down to the tank level permissions. So you cannot give yourself global organization rights, which makes sense. Every account has a, overall administrator. You have to make sure that, the person who's creating these sets them up correctly. Yeah, plenty of calls to telemetry support. I know Allison can probably attest to. I can't see the tanks I need to see. I can't see the organization I'm supposed to see or the locations. Very common. So that's why we really want to drill down on this user profile stuff, because it will be helpful in the long run. And of course, the telemetry support group, you know, we have access to everything, so we can see what you're doing or what you need to do or what box you didn't check. But yeah, so it's helpful, you know, in the long run for everybody. Take some time to call telemetry support and just be able to set it up correctly on the first shot. If you choose to enable global organizations for a user, there's no need to establish user level rights. So that means that box is like the mother of all boxes. That's why I called it that. It gives you the access to all the tanks that are in that organization below, that you're in and below. So like I had mentioned, we're talking about the hierarchy of the organizations. And then manage efficiency, products, and locations. They're similar to up here. There's different sections in SmartTank. So that's, you know, the permissions checkboxes. And what we want to do here now is I'm adding a new user just quickly, you know, as quickly as I can, going into detail where I need to, but I want to talk about how you set one up. And I'll just go back where I was, because I was in the right spot, but these are all of my users here that are in this sub-organization or this organization. I'm in here, and there are a couple other users that, you know, we have in this demo account. Showing only active means I'm only showing the ones that have that active box checked. If you need to know if somebody had permission to get into SmartTank, you uncheck that box and it'll show you a larger list. You're able to see all of the active and inactive. And you can tell here that this is all active. Other than that, you know, it's all active, has web access. If they're locked out, that box would be checked. Last login information. So we store the last login for each of the users in your account. So you're able to come here and kind of take a look at that if you need to see, hey, who logged in, who hasn't logged in quite some time. The data is right here, and you'll be able to see exactly when they logged in. And the username, first and last name are displayed. So you can see that right here. Let's do an add a new user. Again, buttons are very visible and there's no question on where that one is. First name, so anything with a red asterisk, just like anything you do on the internet, if it has a red asterisk, you must fill it out. First name, last name, username. So here's where I just want to be clear. You have to create a username that's unique to the entire SmartTank world. So what's unique? Emails. I personally, when I consult a customer on using email, on usernames or logon IDs, I say use the email address of the person, because nobody else has that. So nobody else will have it. If my name is Steve Smith and I'm trying to create a username in SmartTank as S Smith, it's not going to work. Probably S Smith up to like 10, 20, something like that. You know, you try to add numbers at the end to get that to work out. Just use the email address, the full email address. It makes it much simpler. You don't have to guess. Unique names, you know, you could try to first initial, last name it, but I'm just sticking with the email address, which you do have to fill out here. Just kind of copy and paste it over to this little area here. You have to have an email address in, and it's going to default to the account address. So you have to type yours in if it's different for this user. So say they're in the Northeast, you want to put their information in, and you're in the South, you want to put in the correct address information right here. So that's that section. But you really only have to, at the top here, fill out these four. I do recommend, you know, updating it so you have information stored in here that, you know, that makes sense to the user, but it's not a necessity. Active or not active. So right here, you can check a box. Override all tanks. So I just wanted to talk about that real quick. So this is an option. Obviously, it's not checked automatically, but when you're adding a user, there's this, you know, tank override button here. Each tank can be independently configured to use a different unit of measure. So in your account, you may have different units of measure per tank. maybe up kind of all over the place. But some, your employees, because of what they do, may want to see all tanks in the same unit of measure. So that would be the override all tank units box right here. I've gotten a couple questions about that. I wanted to make sure you all understand. It would then, it's a per user box, so it's not going to override everything in the whole account for all the users. It would just, allow that certain user to see everything in a standardized format. So everything would be the same. Observes daylight savings time, because not everybody does. You can lock users out of the site. Use the new tank list is automatically checked. So we're utilizing a different looking tank list than we did if you were a customer of ours for many years. You'll notice the difference. It's graphically it's changed, and the filtering capabilities are kind of in your face on the old one, and the new one it's a little bit hidden, but it looks much fresher on the site that we're on right now. So we have talked about these. This is where the password is set. Once you start typing in the passwords, it's not going to be viewable. The whole password won't be. You have to confirm it again, and then you would hit update user detail and password, and everything is saved. So then when you come back into your user, I'm going to come back in and we'll talk about the rest of it. Okay. So I have global permissions. Let's see right here. Just make sure. All right. If I come back in here to edit, I can edit the password. So I forgot my password. Can you reset it? If I'm the, I can come in here and reset my own password. It's not going to prompt you to do that. New password, confirm password. And then we'll go down here to permissions. I'm going to make sure I have the screen up here. All right, so there aren't any groups available. I'm kind of going to move through the group section. I want to really focus in on the user permissions panel. So down at the bottom, you'll see some drop downs. Now the first one is open, right? The other two will be dependent on what I do here. So if I've enabled global permissions, I don't need to go down here anymore. But what I do is any of those other boxes that I checked for my user, if I need to give them specific organizational permissions all the way down to the tank level, this is the part where I kind of need to pay attention and make sure that I'm doing the right thing. But if you do the wrong thing, you can undo what you've done. But this is the part where if you're trying to move through it, you got to give tank level, you got to give location level permissions. It's not that it can get super time consuming, but you don't want to have to go back and remove and redo it. It's just you want to hit this correctly the first time. So when you're down here, you can select an organization, right? So if I'm in the organization that I want to grant the permission to, I'm going to then open up a new box and it'll show me locations. And let's go here and go here. And then I'm opening up the tank level permission. And there is one tank in here. If there were multiple tanks in the BK construction tank location, then we would see the entire list. So my user, so this is for this one user, I want them to have just this tank to view. So I have to drill all the way down to get to the grant permission here. So I would grant them the permission to see that tank. And then it's going to show me I have a tank permission granted, what organization name it is in, and then the permissions entity name. So I'm sure if you've used SmartTank before, you know what was means. Was, ULSD 004. So right here, I can see what tank this user can view. If I need to come in here and because my user can't see this tank, then I need to come in and take a look down here. So once you've set it up, this is now set up. So this user can view this tank, but if you need to come in here because the user can't see the tank, then that's the first place that you need to go. They need to be able to see this tank. They need to be able to see this location. So the user permission would be right here, and whatever tanks they're able to see would then stack on top of each other. So you would see a big giant list, say they can only see 10 tanks in your entire organization, and when you come in here, you only see 9. You kind of then have to add that 10th one in. So this is where you would come to make sure that your user is able to see the tanks that they need to see. Now, if you come in here because this person doesn't need to see this tank anymore, same thing applies. You just want to remove, and it's going to ask you, make sure you want to, because if you're wrong, you got to go back and do it again. It removes that tank from the group permissions panel. I'm sorry, the user permissions panel, and they wouldn't be able to see that tank any longer. So that's where you have to, make sure that you're looking at the entire organization. Again, if it's just one organization with a bunch of locations, and you just want them to see certain location, you'd of course then drill just down into, the locations that you want to, make sure that they can see. Because if you give them access to this location, and you grant that permission, I'm not going down to the tank level, it will tell me type of user permission, which is important. That's location level permission in the Skybits Energy organization, and the permissions entity name is Skybits headquarters. So this always refers back to the type. And then if they don't need that anymore, just like I did before, you hit remove and it's gone. So a lot of questions about that. I think over time we, get calls and make sure that our customers are setting this stuff up right. Generally, I believe what telemetry support will do is what I just did, come in, hey, what should they be able to see? I only see, 2 tanks instead of 5. So which ones are missing? And then they kind of can go backwards that way and make sure that your user is set up for success, that they can see what they need to see and get into the system and start using it. So in whatever permissions level you've given them, right? So there's a thought process there. Once you get into it though, you have to do, this part I think is the most, challenging for people, for customers, just to make sure that, the level, that the level and then the additional permissions are set correctly, is generally the part where there's a challenge. So we want to make sure that you understand this is where you go down here at the bottom, and it allows you to see these panels. So these panels can be, closed up so you can't see them, right? So if you see it with the plus, that means it's closed, and it needs to be opened in order to view whatever is within this area. Now I'm going to remove that. And then as far as users go, that is pretty much, setting up the user. Let's go back to the user section here. Editing the user, you come back to the user section, you click on the user that you want to edit, and then you're able to do that. Generally, it'd be changing passwords, it'd be making sure that their permissions are set correctly, adding a tank to their view. Anytime, say you set up a location and you need to grant your user a location privilege, anything that comes into that location then is granted. You don't have to go in and set up, all the tanks, because if you grant them the level of location, anything that's in there or will be in there, they're able to see. Same thing at the org level. As things move in, you don't have to concern yourself with, oh my goodness, now I have to come in and give them permissions. The only time you really have to think about that is when you're doing tank level permissions. You have to make sure that if you add a tank, that's not in one of the locations or anything that you've established, you kind of need to make sure that you're adding that to the view of the user that you need to edit. So I think we have a few questions coming in, which is great. So if you have questions, please type them in the questions boxes. I'll get to them. I think I have a couple folks on the line. Let's see. Yeah, I have 3 questions, which is fantastic. So as far as the overview goes, I've kind of gone through everything I wanted to go through with the folks on the call. So let's get to the questions then. And I'm just going to move over here off screen so I can take a look at what's been asked.
Hey, Sarah, I can give it to you. And actually, the one question that was asked was you answered, which was around location type feature. Can you see all the tanks for that location?
Gotcha.
The second question was more of a request to send the YouTube channel over to somebody. So I will send that over now.
Yes, I see Deborah asked that question. Yes.
So those are the only questions we have at this point.
Okay. Nothing in the chat, and thank you for the questions, ladies. Any questions before I kind of head out? I can give you back some time today, folks. Yeah, and of course I'll talk about the SkyBits YouTube channel again. And I thank you, Ira. Put it in the answer for Deborah's question. Thank you for that question, Deborah. Kind of leads me to my shameless promotion of the SkyBits YouTube channel. I guess we'll have at least one more subscriber today, which is fantastic. So in reviewing user setup, I hope I've given some insight into what you need to learn. Renee had a great question, and luckily I answered it. Thankfully, I kind of went into that topic, needed to make sure they understand location level permissions. You don't have to go in and concern yourself with, oh, I have to set them up again, or I have to refresh something. It's automatically going to happen. And of course, as always, we want to thank everybody who's attended. Sessions are about you. You're our partners, our customers. You give us the best ideas because you're the users of the system. So we want to make sure that you're leveraging the SmartTank tool. And I think we saw a need for this because I don't think that everybody that has access to SmartTank goes in and looks around. I think people maybe get a little bit overwhelmed with their day-to-day, and then they maybe don't come in and want to learn a new system. But that's why we kind of grouped these sessions a little bit shorter than normal so that it's digestible content instead of 1 full hour of content, no question time. We kind of made it a little more digestible chunks. So I hope that worked out for everybody over the past few months that we've been running this session of trainings. And if you do have recommendations or ideas for any future sessions that we're going to run, please let us know. I believe you all have Ira's email address at this point. That was on the invitation to the trainings. And again, this session was recorded, as were all the others, so you can watch them at your leisure. When you have a couple minutes, please go to youtube.com, type SkyBits in search, and hit subscribe. Even if you don't subscribe, you have access to the videos, but I want to make sure that you subscribe because we love subscribers. And we will see everyone, and I don't think we have any more questions, but we will see everyone in 2 weeks on May 20th. We are going to chat with Faraz Hussein. He is our sales engineer. He's going to be talking about the future of SmartTank. So that will be a fantastic conversation. And again, we want to thank everybody for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you from the SkyBits team.